This week, a House of Lords committee said Britain's economy has gained very little from immigration. But there's more to immigration than pounds and pence. There's the moral and family values that immigrants bring. Yesterday, Mr. Justice Coleridge said our urban family life is in meltdown. Our first big question: can immigrants make Britain more moral? Now, you may disagree with what I say, but will you defend to the death my right to say it? A Dutch film suggesting the Quran inspires violence was withdrawn from a British website this week because of death threats from Muslims. Our next big question: do we have the right to offend? And our last big question of the current series, one that is fundamental to many believers: does the devil exist? We're back at West London Academy in Northolt with a local audience who've made it here through the snow and the cold on this spring morning. And we have on our panel in the posh seats a distinguished gathering. The Right Reverend Tom Butler, Bishop of Southwark, writer and broadcaster Christina Odoni, Costa Prize-winning novelist Alison Kennedy, and Rabbi Yitzhak Shokit from the Mill Hill Synagogue. And our special guest is the scientist and untiring champion of atheism. Some people reckon he's the devil, Professor Richard Dawkins. For centuries, Britain has become a new home to people fleeing religious persecution, like the Huguenots or the Jews, people fleeing political oppression, many who've come here just to make a better life for themselves and their families. They've also brought their religious ideas and their own moral values, which may be just the thing to rescue us from our social problems. At the start of this series of the big questions, a poll conducted for us by Comres found that 83% of the 1,000 adults surveyed believe that Britain is in moral decline. Can immigration make Britain more moral? Christina Odoni, I mean, this judge was talking about the cancer of society that is family breakdown, and what is needed maybe is a sort of injection of values. He didn't say this, but what do you think about the contention that maybe some of the moral values, the family values, brought here by immigrants can save us from ourselves?
I think that's a very, very interesting theory, and I think absolutely so. You know, we've been taught since 2007, since July 2007, that the immigrant community is basically a breeding ground for terrorism. Actually, I think it's a breeding ground for a fantastic value system. And when you look at where these immigrants come from, they usually come from, cultures where self-sacrifice is still big. And although they come here for self-fulfillment, they manage to retain that sense of, you know, children come first, family's all important, me, myself, and I is not at the very centre.
A belief in marriage, mother, father, children, stay together.
Yes, yes, but it's not just marriage. It's about discipline. It's about hard work. Yeah. You know, they come from Poland, from Bangladesh, from Ghana, and they still really believe that although they must make it, they want to keep their values intact.
Douglas Murray from the Centre for Social Cohesion. This is what we need.
Well, it's good to be talking about immigration not just in terms of economics, which is what tends to happen. There's another thing, though, is that whatever Christina says about the impact of and the feelings of new immigrants, I have to say I tend to be slightly worried when I hear people like the judges talking about this, because I sense, I think a lot of other people do, that what we're talking about are the most reactionary views of all kinds of religions, the most reactionary opinions about the family, things actually that people in this country are generally quite tolerant about.
Such as?
Well, I mean, things like marriage, things like homosexuality, which, when a judge nods to the family values of, for instance, Islam in this country, he could do so, but he's also nodding to a very reactionary religion in relation to, say, homosexuality.
Miriam, we'll bring you in here, I think it's an appropriate point, a convert. When you hear that, what about the fears that many have about the backwards social attitudes of, for example, Islam, that people point to, the attitude to women, the attitude to gays, forced marriages, all those things that concern people?
Well, I certainly think that, you know, one has to distinguish between, you know, the faith as an ideal and how it's practiced within the community, and I'm not the first person to say that, but, you know, obviously there are reactionary attitudes, and I think that to sort of infer that immigrants are bringing in these sort of alien, negative values into British society is to somehow miss out on the fact that actually what British values are the interaction between outside influences and the ideas and beliefs which currently prevail. Sure. And in fact, that brings a richness to our society.
Look, I mean, nobody's denying the richness that immigrants bring to society, but it's also true to say that just because we say, oh, well, this is your point of view, you're entitled to it, that's fine. In a tolerant and open society, you should have that. But it becomes very difficult, and I think this occurs particularly with homosexuality in the West. It's particularly difficult when you get to a stage where you say that you have to be tolerant of people who are intolerant to you.
Well, that is something that you have to reconcile as a society in which you have different perspectives. These are no longer outside perspectives. What you need to understand, and what I think is kind of an odd way of conceptualizing this debate, is these ideas coming from the outside. You have people within the society that may not approve of homosexuality. Yeah, there are ideas, I suppose, Miriam,
that could possibly bolster some indigenous ideas already here. People who maybe feel they are social conservatives but are being marginalised in our society.
Possibly.
And they may find succour from these people coming in.
Possibly, or perhaps these are issues that we as a British society need to rethink. Maybe these are ideas that we need to thrash out and decide where we actually stand on. These are British attitudes. I don't really like the idea of conceptualising them as ideas that come from the outside. There are people within Britain that are British that do hold these ideas, and to simply brush them away as the ideas of a minority from the outside is to not really give credit to them.
Keith Porteous, Peter Tatchell, both of you. I see very, very keen to come in. I don't know which you're going to choose. Peter first. Go on, Peter Tatchell.
I think we should be very careful about generalising. Immigrant communities come with lots of different backgrounds, different ideas, different influences, some cultural, some religious.
Is there a danger of a step back to a place that we've escaped from socially, with some of the values that are being brought in?
I think that is true amongst some immigrants. You know, look at the Polish immigrants who are coming here. A lot of them bring a very, very conservative, hardline Catholicism, which is very anti-woman, very anti-gay. We see other sections of immigrant communities who condone or endorse female genital mutilation, forced marriages, domestic violence, because I think men should rule the house and are justified to abuse their women if they are disobedient. We also see honour killing of women and gay people in this country in small numbers, but nevertheless in unacceptable numbers amongst some sections of immigrant communities. So I think there are some bad attitudes, but many immigrants do bring positive values and do enrich our society.
I'm going to address the bad attitudes, then I'll come to Betty. And Keith, I've got you in mind, don't worry. Miriam?
Yeah, no, I think you're going to have a hard time finding people that condone honour killings, that condone female genital mutilation, etc., etc. I mean, we can bring out all of these sort of pretty marginal, experiences that people have. But at the end of the day, these are minority experiences, and the vast majority of people are not. These are not the issues that affect us, that affect Muslims and other minorities within this country.
Keith Porteous Wood.
But I don't think they are as little as that. The forced marriage, the female genital mutilation, honour killings. The problem is because they are regarded as culturally sensitive. Even though we've got laws against them, they're not being properly policed. The social care workers, the police, they're frightened to touch them.
Are we in danger of accentuating...
There has not been one FGM prosecution in this country.
Aren't we in danger of rather accentuating the negative?
My goodness, how much more negative can you get for the poor people that are affected that we're actually betraying? We're not looking after them.
But
it's a shocking thing that's happening.
Absolutely nobody is defending these things. You bring to me a voice that's defending female genital mutilation in this country, and I will accept that view.
Okay, Betty. Are we in moral decline? You're a charismatic evangelica. Are we in a sort of moral decline that needs an infusion of morals from elsewhere?
No. England, from the onset, were the ones that went to different countries. They went out and they brought good things to countries that didn't even know about electricity. They went into poor countries, Africa, many different educated people. Now, because of wars, because of persecution, different people are coming in here. And instead of us collaborating, people want to actually impose their ideas in this country. What
about the attitudes to gays, for example, that
I personally don't think homosexuality is a good thing. That's my belief, being a Christian. I don't think two men should sleep together, or two women should sleep. I think homosexuality is a good thing. That's my belief, being a Christian. I don't think two men should sleep together, or two women should sleep together, and I stand by that. What I believe in is obviously coming here, collaborating. Before gay people came out and women, this country did not tolerate that.
Was that a better time?
I believe it was a better time. Obviously, we need to move on. We need to move on to embrace change. And obviously, immigrants coming in, we taught by the British then when you came in, but from the Bible, that these things are not right. It's not good.
The moral mix is Peter.
I would defend Betty's right to hold those views.
Well,
they're her conscientious
yeah.
views. Where I would object is the way in which people like Betty, some people like Betty, seek to impose her morality on everyone else through the law of the land. So they want to make their morality the legal morality that binds us all.
Now, let me answer that.
One second, let Betty first,
Yeah.
Councillor Alan Craig, and then we'll come to the panel.
I do strongly believe you will not be sitting here if you didn't have a mother. A man and a woman. You were given birth to by a woman, the family together. And so by then, I do believe clearly that being a homosexual is not a good thing. It's your choice. You were not forced to be homosexual.
What's wrong, Keith?
I think that it's not a choice for people. My goodness, the amount of oppression there's been of gay people to suggest that they do it because they want to do it is just stupid. We all know better than that.
Mr. Matolic, is there a danger that with many of the social conservative attitudes coming into this country, it's not going to be morally good for us, it's going to take us back to a place that some argue we've moved on from?
That isn't my experience. Most of my urban congregations now are predominantly Afro-Caribbean. And obviously they come in with very different values from West Africa or the Caribbean, and sometimes to
very different values from the Guardian and the Independent as well.
Different values from one another in terms of child upbringing, family life, and yet we're all kind of sharing the same church. Now what I'm discerning, in fact, is that they are also influenced by British values, including British values of tolerance. And the campaigning, if you like, from a more conservative direction is not actually coming from those people. It's coming more from white conservative British. And so, in a sense, we're influencing one another. And actually, from the Church of England, we're doing very well out of it because we've got somebody like Johnson Tamu, the Archbishop of York, who brings that energy and that passion, but also brings a great deal of intelligence. So we're winning.
I think there's some views from the audience as well. Gentleman back there with the red shirt. Yeah, go on.
Hi, we've been talking about sort of morality and stuff, but in terms of the sort of big stories in the news, in terms of moral action, they've been sort of Sharon Matthews and all the sort of teenage killings. What relevance does immigration have to that? And that's what people seem to be most concerned about when they're talking about moral decline. They're talking about these stories, but where's immigration got a point in that?
Immigration, the argument is that there's many of the people coming in have a sort of a stronger moral framework, a stronger family background, and they would bolster those values within this country. People talk, Maria, about the Poles, don't they? You came from Poland, well, when, 3 or 4 years ago?
3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And well, I think that I would like to make any simplistic statement about this, but I think that it should be the whole moral decline needs to be approached from at least a few angles. Well, to start with, the immigrants coming to Britain, I think are very well aware of the fact that the British society was built on the values such as democracy, freedom, respect, tolerance. And we are guests here, actually, and we want to learn, and we also want to contribute to this country.
There's an argument by the SOCA, who are the people who deal with organised crime in this country, that a lot of crime has gone up because of Eastern European immigration. Gun crime, other aspects of organised crime, people trafficking and all that. So it's not all, pious Catholics packing in the churches on a Sunday, is it? There are challenges, there are problems.
There are, but again, you can't, this is a immigration, immigrants as a group, they are a very diverse group. So, you can't generalize, and I think you need to remember about the fact that there are certain values which, well, we actually started the whole debate with these, with the results of the poll that about 83% of people believe that there is a moral decline, and well, we can't change anything, but I think that we can perhaps influence some values and bring some values which, for example, Polish people have landed in their homes, like very, very strong family ties.
OK, do you buy that about the Polish immigration, for example, Douglas Murray?
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, the polling people and asking them if they sense moral decline, I don't think you could ever take a poll anywhere at any point in our history where people thought they were in moral ascent. It just doesn't happen. Everything's always getting worse. That's the nature of human feeling.
Yeah. So, Richard Dawkins, are you worried at all by some of the social attitudes